Okay, so we finished the last one. Apologies for stopping abruptly. We finished on the roles in the decision-making process. Now we're going to move on to the steps in the decision-making process. Two completely different questions if either appear on an exam paper. Roles are about people or departments. Steps are obviously a process. So looking at, we have two different processes to discuss. One is the consumers, the private users of products, and the other is organizational buyers. So here we're looking at private users, the consumer decision-making process, 5 steps. So the first one is need recognition or problem awareness, information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchase, and post-purchase evaluation. So the first step, your laptop has broken, you have a lot of assignments coming up in the next couple of weeks, and you want to make sure that you get a new laptop in time to be able to get them done. So that is the problem that you're aware of. That is you recognizing your need. So that's step 1. You start Googling, you start looking up where can you buy laptops? Where did you buy it last time? All that sort of stuff. You ask your friends, what are you using? What do you recommend? This is where you're gathering information from different sources. You might start to read reviews online and so on. And then at some point, when you're gathering all this information, you start to narrow down the choices. So this is evaluation of alternatives. Evaluation means there's some kind of judgment happening here. The previous step is just gathering information. There's no judgment. You're just looking at what's available, what are the prices, what are the features, and so on. And so evaluation of alternatives is where your choice criteria come in and you start comparing, you start narrowing down who is offering exactly what I want, at what prices, and what are the terms. And then at some point, obviously, the purchase happens. You make a final decision in the purchase stage and you do the transaction. Money is exchanged, goods are received. So it could be the simple exchange in the checkout, it could be in a shop, or it could be a virtual checkout online. Post-purchase evaluation is after you have received the product, after the customer has received the product and they form an opinion as to whether they feel they got value for money, they start using the product, and it's after time has passed, do they still feel they got value, and what do they think? So again, there's judgment here. Evaluation means there's some kind of judgment. And as marketers, the process doesn't stop once we have the money. At the purchase, we got the money already at the previous stage, but this post-purchase evaluation is very important to us. So it's at this stage that cognitive dissonance can happen. So cognitive implies it's some kind of processing going on in our heads, and dissonance means it's a mismatch. So maybe in a customer, they expected something superstar laptop and they got average. There's a mismatch there. Or the product, listed features, advertised features, and delivered only half of that. So again, it's a mismatch, and as marketers, this is a problem for us, and this is something where we need to manage that in advance. We need to work on that and make sure it doesn't happen in the future. So this process, this decision-making process, could take seconds. If it's a bar of chocolate that you're trying to decide, I fancy some chocolate, you go into the shop, you scan the shelves really quickly. So information search, evaluation of alternatives combined probably take 10, 20 seconds, and then you bring it to the checkout and you buy it Post-purchase evaluation is just a blink of an eye. Yeah, that was satisfying, or, I'm going to have to go to the gym to work that off. And that's about the size of it. And that happens in what we call low involvement. We don't get very involved in the decision-making process. It's not that important to us. The other end of the scale is high involvement. It's very important. There are risks involved. If we buy the wrong thing and it turns out to be a bad decision, it matters to us. It matters a lot. In the laptop scenario, that's high involvement for most people. It's a lot of money to hand over. It's a lot more than a bar of chocolate. And it matters if we don't have a money back guarantee and it actually blows up a week after we bought it and we have to start all over again. Maybe we don't have that money to buy another one. But it certainly matters. It's a big deal. Buying a house is the biggest deal, the biggest purchase most of us will ever make, hopefully. And that is very high involvement. So it's a sliding scale. It's not just black or white, low to high. It's a scale going from low to high. And some things are in the middle and some things are at the extreme ends. And it varies from one person to the next what is high involvement, because it's not just about price. So the low involvement products are typically inexpensive, they're typically cheap, but they also are things that pose a low risk to the buyer if you make a mistake. So it doesn't matter if it's a good or bad decision, it doesn't matter. The wrong shampoo, it doesn't feel that nice or doesn't smell that nice, meh. You'll just buy a different one next time. Maybe you'll remember not to buy this one again. That's about the size of it. High involvement, usually high price and high risk to the buyer. So in class, we talked about new parents for their newborn child, even if it's, items that cost a matter of euros, they may spend a long time researching what's the best for their child because it matters if it gives the child a rash or some other kind of reaction. It matters a lot. So that makes it high involvement. They care, it does matter. And so they will take their time going through these 5 steps. Now, moving on, we mentioned choice criteria before. So, whoops, didn't mean to move that. Choice criteria when evaluating alternatives. And it depends on the product category, where these come out of, but it can range from technical, so performance, comfort, delivery, all that sort of stuff, economics in regard to value for money and price and so on, social, status and belonging, or personal, self-image, morals, emotions. Buying green, for example, fits with your personal principles. Maybe, as I talked about in class, Mercedes ran a successful campaign over a number of years, and it was all about buying the car to meet those self-fulfillment goals. You've made it. If you own that Merc, it's the car you dreamed of when you were a little child, and you knew if you had that car, you made it. So it's a personal fulfillment. It's not about, status or people seeing it in that sense. It's just personally owning it and a personal fulfillment. Now, so before we looked at the steps in the consumer decision-making process, now we have the organizational decision-making process. A lot of similarities, but it's just a bit more complex, as you might imagine. So there are 7 steps instead of 5. The first one is similar to the previous, recognition of the problem. So the need awareness is similar. Determination, next, determination of spec and quantity of item needed. So we have to be a little bit more particular because it's usually different departments involved in the stages. So we have to give very detailed instructions. So it's not just a bag of screws, it's very detailed what metal should the screws be in, what size are they, what other requirements should they have. Then there should be a search for companies that can supply those kinds of things. Once we know exactly what the specs are, we have to see what are the options of places. So it's a little more detailed than information search. Then again, the evaluation stage in the private process, in the consumer process, is split into as well. Acquisition and analysis of proposals. So again, there is some kind of judgment, an evaluation of proposal and selection of supplier. So these are something that you just need to memorize and go through. And then the purchase is replaced with selection of an order routine. So again, it's a more bureaucratic process, and performance feedback and evaluation is that final step. We have different product categories in the organizational buying. So products that they buy could fall into components. So these are partly processed products that will go into whatever it is we make. Raw materials are unprocessed products that will go into what we're making. Plant and equipment, as the name suggests, are all the machines and whatever we use to make what we're making if we're a manufacturing company. And then products and services, this final category basically is the catch-all. If it doesn't fall into the other categories, it goes into this one. So the coffee in the canteen, the desks in the office, printers, ink, laptops, everything that is just used in the day-to-day running of the company, but doesn't go into the product and isn't part of the machinery and so on that makes the product. So we've talked before about the importance of trying to retain customers and generating customer loyalty and so on. And this has been expanded into an area of customer care and relationship marketing. And so this is grounded in the idea of establishing a learning relationship with our customers. It's learning because we're constantly trying to gather information that will help us better satisfy their needs. So customer care needs to be addressed because of legal constraints. Sometimes we have a legal obligation to satisfy certain needs. Industry codes of conduct, again, not quite legal, but still something we have to do. Understanding that keeping existing customers happy is cheaper than acquiring new ones, as we said earlier. And then the value chain. So a similar point, providing after sales service is an opportunity for differentiation. Maybe the products that we sell are basically the same as what the other companies are offering, and how we can stand out is our after sales service. So that's something. That's where we create a competitor advantage. So we have a little table here looking at customer care strategy. We have the stages down the left and the content of what we should be focusing on at each stage on the right. So corporate strategy and objectives. So then the objectives for customer loyalty and customer care should be included here as with a strategy for caring for customers. External environmental analysis should analyze what makes customers loyal and respond to different policies and so on. Internal environmental analysis, analyze suppliers' capabilities with respect to keeping our customers. So our suppliers and our customers, that chain where we are in the middle, is part of the internal environmental analysis. Marketing objectives and strategy. So obviously our marketing objectives and strategy should focus on long-term impact on customer loyalty. So our profit, sales, market share increases in all of those, hopefully. Action plans. So the operational marketing should focus on the effect on customers of all of our processes and the results. So we need to always track results, track customer movements, tracking online and so on, tracking our sales, new customers, repeat business, as well as sales and profit. So what are the new customers buying? What are repeat customers buying, and so on? Are they different? Are they behaving differently? So relationship marketing is the process of creating, building up, and maintaining long-term relationships with customers, distributors, and suppliers. And we have two types of relationships identified between buyers and sellers. Just broadly breaking them down, we have transaction-based marketing. So this is focused on this exchange. You give me money, I give you stuff. That's the transaction. Relationship approach is where the sale is only the start of the relationship with the customer. And you know, again, this is a sliding scale. It's not a black and white thing. If you're buying toothpaste in the local supermarket, you're not expecting the cashier to start asking you about how often you brush and what circumstance you brush and you know, what time of day and all that sort of thing. That would feel intrusive. Whereas somebody selling a car might ask you about your commute and so on, and it's a different a different level of exchange is appropriate for different types of products. So the importance of relationships, we've mentioned it's cheaper to keep customers than to try and continue to get new customers. And here we have the cost of lost customers is where a drop of 5%, sorry, sorry, that should be a dash, not a minus. So a 5% increase in customer retention can increase our operating profit by 50%. And that is our lifetime customer value. Because we will be growing and growing and growing if we can do that. Existing loyal customers are profitable because they don't have to be acquired. They buy a broader range of products because once they like one brand, they'll try our other options as well. They cost less to service because they know more about our products if they've been trying them for a while. They're less sensitive to price. Again, they have positive vibes about our brand more so than other companies. So it would take a bigger price differential to make them move. And they will hopefully recommend us by word of mouth. And again, we talked about a sliding scale in the previous slide between transactional based marketing and the relationship approach. So here are some more points on that scale. So we start with a basic. So again, it's just toothpaste. Nobody wants to talk about it. Dog food. Hand over money, give me the bag of dog food. Reactive, accountable, proactive, and then partnership. If we're selling screws to IKEA, you know, we're making screws and nuts and bolts, it would be in our interest, our business interest, to have a partnership approach to that relationship with IKEA. We want to get to know the designers, their furniture designers. We want to get to know their manufacturing department and so on. We want to have meetings with them and find out exactly, you know, what other products they're thinking about, and so on, so that we can design the perfect screws and nuts and bolts to fit their needs, and and have a specific range just for them. And because if we can help them build better furniture, that's going to help their business. They will sell more furniture. And if they sell more furniture, they come back to us for more nuts and bolts. So, definition of relationship marketing is the management of a firm's market relationships. So, top and bottom, the customers and the suppliers are in that chain. They are both important. So, the effort in long-term relationship building is more appropriate in some markets than in others. So, we talked about that. The relationship approach to marketing is more appropriate when switching costs are high and a lost customer is probably lost for a long time. So if IKEA switch to buying from another nut and bolt maker, they're not just going to come back to us next week. That's probably a big customer. They were probably spending tens of thousands or millions even, depending on how big the contract is, with us on an annual basis. And, because it's that partnership approach, it takes a long time to switch, and they're not coming back for a long time. They're going to lock into probably 3-year deal, perhaps, with whoever they've switched to. So we've got, again, one of these tables. On the left, we go through different aspects of of the relationship. On the left is transactional. On the right is the relationship attitude. So in transactional attitude towards customer care, the importance is on that single sale, whereas on the relationship side, it's the customer relationship. So it's all about starting this partnership, hopefully. The importance is on product features on transactional side, whereas it's customer benefits on the other, short time scales versus long time scales, less emphasis on service. Relationship will be a high degree of service. Quality is only a concern in the production department. On the relationship side, quality is a concern for all. Competitive commitment, meaning we just try to beat the competition in whatever it is we do. Whereas in a relationship approach, we have a high degree of customer commitment. The customer commits to us, we commit to them, and so on. And we're on both sides, we're locking in for a period of time. Persuasive communications. So this is advertising, really pushing, urging action in terms of buy it now. Whereas in the relationship approach, there is regular communication and less of the advertising, urgent call to action. It's more likely to be random communications. Here's an article I read about furniture making. You might find it interesting. Send it over to IKEA and so on. And it's about just that regular communication. The salespeople in our nut and bolt company will know the names of the children in the purchasing department in IKEA and so on. They will know because they have this regular communication that isn't about getting the order. So just as much communication as possible, because they're more considered colleagues working together, because it's in everybody's interest. There's no conning, there's no convincing involved. It's all about working together. If your company benefits, my company benefits. That kind of attitude. So it's a colleague approach. So loyalty schemes, we've mentioned loyalty cards already. So these collect information about customer buying habits, and that's how we gather the information sometimes. And that in turn reward customers for repeat purchases, and it encourages sales and more sales. Distinguishing characteristics of relationship marketing: focus on customer retention, not attraction. Development of ongoing relationship, again, not a transaction, not just a transaction. Long time scale, direct and regular customer contact. quality and customer satisfaction is a concern for all employees in all departments. Key account relationship management. So somebody is designated to be responsible for that customer. So we have somebody in our company designated to look after IKEA, or a team perhaps that will take over if one person isn't there. And the importance is on building trust and keeping promises. We do not promise what we cannot deliver. We want to under-promise and over-deliver, in fact. And multiple exchanges with a number of parties. So again, there is a lot of communication flying around, and it is not advertising. It is not urgent or requests to put in an order now and all that sort of thing. It's just any related communication that helps you or me. Now, within customer behavior studies, there are two theories on learning, and we have classical conditioning and operant conditioning. So classical conditioning is the process of using an established relationship between a stimulus and a response to cause learning. Whereas operant conditioning is all about an individual response to the stimulus that offers the most satisfactory rewards, and subsequently that behavior then is repeated. The more rewarding the response, the more likelihood of a repeat purchase. So, excuse me, classical conditioning uses an established relationship between the stimulus and response to cause learning. So in advertising, humor is known to elicit a pleasant response and is used in the belief that these pleasant feelings will be a condition of the product. So we already have warm and fuzzy feelings about things that make us laugh. And if that particular ad for this brand makes you laugh, then you maybe transfer some of those warm and fuzzies to the brand itself, and you have those positive feelings towards the brand. Operant conditioning is, in marketing, is where the use of free samples is used. So obviously, the reward is the sample and so on. Now we look at Maslow's 5 categories of motivation. The numbers are hard to see, but they're numbered 1 to 5. The first being physiological. These are physical needs to survive, the actual survival, thirst, hunger, and so on. Safety then is next, belongingness and love, self-actualization and esteem and status. And so the theory is that it's usually depicted in a triangle, and people can't move on to they're not focused on the later elements if they're stuck in one of the early. They're often stuck in one of these phases of motivation. For example, if people are hungry, they are not going to worry about whether their 15-year-old self would be proud of what I've done with my life so far. All they're focused on is the earlier. If they're stuck in an earlier phase, then the later phases don't matter. Doesn't matter if people respect me in work if I am literally starving and I don't know if I can feed my kids. If those, we can be more trivial and say it's coming up to lunchtime and I'm getting hangry. Again, I don't really care about some of the other stuff if I'm thinking about lunch. So until that need is satisfied, I can't move on to the next. So safety can be about physical safety. If I'm going home from that restaurant and there's no taxi outside, do I have to walk down a dark street to get to the bus stop? Or again, if I'm thinking about that, I'm not going to be moving on about wondering if I'm ever going to be fulfilled. My primary concern is here, and I'm not going to be thinking about anything down here. So safety can also involve job security and, you know, whether you're going to get your degree and so on, that all of those concerns about job and where you are. Are there going to be redundancies? Belongingness and love, probably the most self-explanatory one. Happily in love, happily married, wondering, you know, is this person the right person for me? Am I happy being single? All of those things. All those things of whether we're satisfied enough with what we have. And again, we're not going to move on if this is where we're stuck. So sometimes we go from being hangry, we can skip ahead if all these are okay, and worry about, you know, am I going to get that job that everybody will be proud of me for having, or whatever. Self-actualization is fulfilling your own dreams, and being satisfied with yourself. So Mercedes is tapping into this in the earlier example of, you know, the 10-year-old, satisfying that 10-year-old's idea of whether you're successful or not is owning that that nice Mercedes car. Esteem and status is about what other people think of you. So similar line of thought, but instead of what you think, it's what others think and how you feel about your place in the world in their eyes. So exam questions, some examples. So as before, I have mentioned that, you know, I've just given an indication of what marks were. These are taken from various past papers. And when you are practicing exam, well, you should practice exam questions. And when you are practicing, you should look at the marks that are going for them. Exam papers are marked out of 100, unless otherwise stated. And so you should be aiming for a minute a mark. So if it's 20 marks, roughly spend 20 minutes. What could you be expected to write in 20 minutes? Giving time to stop and think and so on. 10 minutes, obviously, 10 marks and so on. Okay, so we'll leave it there. And if you have questions, you can ask them in class.